Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Rams Review Podcast. We're here with another transfer special as Derby have been linked with a move to a Danish midfielder currently on loan at FC Utrecht, whose parent club is Borussia Mönchengladbach. That is a lot of information. His name is Oscar Fraulo. He's a 21-year-old Danish under-21 international. And we wanted to get a little bit more perspective because Derby's been linked with a move to him. So there was only one guy we were going to go to, and that's Michael Statham. Not related to Jason Statham, but Michael Statham. He's a Dutch football expert at Football Orange, who covers all things Dutch football. So we figured because Oscar Fraulo is at Utrecht, he'd be a good guy to bring on. Michael, welcome to the Rams Review Podcast.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Yeah, I've watched Oscar Fraulo a fair bit. Love the Eredivisie. Watched it for a long time. Way over a decade, maybe even longer. And Utrecht this season, I've watched a fair bit of them as well. Fraulo's not like a key player at the moment for them, but I can certainly tell you about him as a player and his development really over the past couple of seasons.
Yeah, that would be ideal, Michael. And I want to ask, when the link for Oscar Fraulo kind of came up about 4 or 5 days ago, linking him with a move to Derby County, was this a surprise for you as someone who covers Dutch football because Utrecht are third in the Eredivisie? Was this a surprising kind of like link?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. So my mind was going through a few things when I saw this, and I thought at first, he's on a 2-year loan from the German club. So it was playing the Netherlands for obviously to develop himself. Does he at the end of those 2 years go and back to his parent club? Does he stay at Utrecht on a permanent deal? That's unlikely in these kind of situations with Dutch clubs, with them having a lack of money. Or does he move somewhere else? So given that he's got another 6 months to run on his loan deal over these 2 years, why does a club from a league such as the Championship want to take him on now when he hasn't quite finished that? Is it like a punt that they can see some potential in him and want him now before his value maybe increases further? So that's what my mind was thinking first of all. And then I thought maybe it's not so much of a surprise given, yes, Utrecht are having a brilliant season. So a team sitting in the top 3 of the Eredivisie right now, they're not in a title race. They just want to qualify for European football. So even if they finish 5th, that is very good for them. They are not up there really in terms of their quality as high as AZ Alkmaar, Twente, Ajax, PSV or Feyenoord. But they're having a great season where the team ethic is fantastic and they're led by a very good manager, Ron Jans. So his situation within the team is he's not a key player. He's not a starter for a lot of these games. Last season, though, made 32 appearances in the league where you have 34 games in a season. So he's played most of the games last season when Utrecht went from being bottom of the table in the Dutch league and they ended up rising to the Eredivisie playoffs. They ended up losing. So when I say playoffs, I mean the European playoffs. And they missed out on qualification for the Conference League. So they had a really good rise. Then he got European football. Now, Fraulo within that was a sub-player to begin with, and you can find clips of it online. Like his first goal for Utrecht, his like breakthrough, if you like, was a goal against Ajax, and this was when Ajax were also at the bottom of the table, so it was like the bottom 2 played each other at that moment in time, and he got the win on a 4-3 win. So that was really exciting for Fraulo, and then he was kind of coming to having more time, more appearances from there. Really had a lot of games in the centre of midfield. If you look at his record, he's not like a goal-scoring midfielder. That is a bit of a worry for him because at times he was playing as an attacking midfielder in his development, especially with the Denmark youth teams. So he's, what are his strengths? I think that'll be a question you might want to ask me a bit later. But I noticed that he's kind of retreated into a defensive midfield position. So going from last season into this one, where he's played a mixture of the full games, but also being a sub-player. Now Utrecht, the standard is higher, more expectations that they're going to push for European football. And yes, sure enough, at first they were kind of sitting 2nd and 3rd in the league, but not as key a player this season. That's why I think he wants this move. So your question was, is it a surprise? And on reflection, no, actually it's not. He's on a 2-year loan and he is expecting games for his development. And the past couple of months, he's barely played actually. Why is that? Are the standards now too high at Utrecht that he's maybe now being pushed out the door? He's got another defensive midfielder in his way who's currently injured at the moment, Can Bosgodan. And then in front of him in sort of the 8 and 10 positions, as they say in the Netherlands, Paxton Aronson is an American player who's having a very good campaign. So that kind of position's taken as well. So he's kind of been pushed out in that he's falling back into a defensive midfield position because that's better for him, but he's got better players in his way.
So it's more of he might be considered a victim of Utrecht's success rather than like this guy's not very good. It's just our expectations have risen. We're having like a once in a generation kind of season. We're third in the table. And unfortunately, their growth as a club has outpaced his development as a player. Instead of being, the two lines being equal, one's kind of nipped up the other one, and other than the fact that he's just not very
precisely
good.
That. I wouldn't want to put him as defensive midfielder if I was at Alkmaar because Jordi Klaas is in the way and he's a fantastic midfielder there. So those levels that they're playing at now are now very high. Looking at teams that would be able to contend with Premier League sides. So if you're a Championship side and you look at someone like Oscar Fraulo, you'd be like, well, if he was at a side sitting more mid-table in the Eredivisie, would he be playing a lot better? So the same for Kenzo Houdmine, who I'd love to ask you about, by the way, on this show, like how he's getting on, having watched him for a long time since he was a teenager. Even spoke to him actually when he was a teenager, and now he's going to Derby County. I found that a really interesting move that they're looking in the Eredivisie for that, when a lot of Championship sides, it's quite physical and that kind of thing. Fraulo doesn't really fit that Eredivisie mold of being a highly technical midfielder, and he's actually more of a strong defensive midfielder in that respect. So that's why it might suit him going to the Championship. So I think you're asking that, and he doesn't mean he's a bad player. It just means that these levels are different now.
And I was looking at his statistics, Michael, in preparation for this. He was, he's suspended for the first 3 games, and then he basically played a majority of the games from September to the 1st of December. And then since the 1st of December, it's kind of been on bench, come on for 3 minutes, on the bench, 15 minutes, 1 minute, on the bench, 23 minutes. So you can kind of see where, kind of since early December, they've started to go in a little bit direction as they've maybe started to get a little bit more serious about, we're third, we have something to do special here. So we need to get players in that we feel like can, cut the mustard. And again, not to say that he's a bad player. He's certainly a better footballer than me. I don't know about you because I've not seen you play, but he's certainly a better footballer than me. Hence why I'm podcasting. So, that's interesting to hear and know that's like, there might be reasons as to why he can't get in the team. Because you get players that, you'll know this. Nottingham Forest third, their level was not supposed to be third this season. They're having an amazing year. No. So if you have a player that's like, oh man, maybe, but you've got a special season going, so you have to reiterate to kind of, evolve to try to keep that going. So talk to me about, you mentioned a little bit about his positioning there, Michael. Is he solely a defensive midfielder? Because he's also played in center midfield and attacking midfield. And, other than what position in midfield is he, what type of midfielder is he? Is he, like a box-to-box type? Is he a technical, as you would expect a player in Holland to kind of be? Or is he just like a creator, a destroyer? What's his best position? And then what kind of midfielder is he in that best position?
So I would argue at the moment, as someone who maybe, I watch a lot of football, watch a lot of Dutch football, however, not like a top level coach or anything like this. But I look at him and I think the reason why he keeps changing position is that he's not yet found that best position, which makes me a little sad for him because he's wanting to, create a career for himself. And if it doesn't go well in the Championship, where does that leave him? Does he go back to Denmark or something like that? At that point, playing a lot with the Denmark under 21s, like he's obviously got potential and he's not a bad player. So if you look at these positions he's playing, he's been played out on the right wing, left wing, attacking midfield, centre midfield, and then now more of a defensive midfield. I think though that kind of suits him, and maybe being part of a 2 in midfield, a double pivot, might actually kind of work for him. Because he was, when he first broke into the scene, he was very like, he was like a young puppy, very enthusiastic. He would just run a lot, and he was like, trying to get on everything, trying to impress everybody. No, not quite so much, and I think it's because he's found a bit more of maturity in the way he's trying to play. You have to be technical to play in the Netherlands, and he has got some of that about him. I'd say that he loves a through ball, that he loves playing a ball from deeper positions, which is why I think that works him playing a little deeper in the middle. That's one of his strengths. He's played some great passes in the past that have led to assists. As well as that, I think he can hold on to the ball really well. He's got good strength. That's why, again, I think that kind of works him. So last night he came off the bench and he was, again, trying to help the team see off some threats from Heracles Almelo. And yeah, he was doing that. It was part of those efforts, being not sitting within that back four, but being part of that defensive effort when there were some high balls played. It was a tough game for Utrecht, actually. The Wolves had a lot more of shots and possession. They didn't really create that many good chances, and they were actually, I think, fortunate to get a draw last night, despite the stats. So I think, again, he came onto the pitch and he was trying to make a difference in the game, and he did so with more of his defensive efforts than his attacking ones in that game. What else can I say about him? I think that he's a midfielder that likes to try and hold onto the ball and progress it. But equally, he's not one that will be dribble and take on 5 or 6 players and lead to a chance, unlike a Frenkie de Jong, say, he used to play in the Netherlands. So, yeah, he's got these bits and pieces about him. He's a passer. He likes through balls. He's got a bit of strength about him. I mean, a very loose comparison, because I know people know him in English football, be like a bit of a John McGinn, the way he likes to play, but it's a very loose comparison. But yeah, he wouldn't be someone that will run into the box and score lots of goals. He's not a threat aerially within that. He's not known to score lots of goals from range or take lots of shots from range. But that's why I think he's better from deep.
If he turned out to be half the player John McGinn was, I would be super excited.
Oh, you'd be very happy.
John McGinn is like the ultimate like below the radar throwback kind of guy that gives you like an 8 out of 10 every week. That's just not spectacular, but just does everything, and you could just rely on him. So if he was half the player John McGinn was, I would be so happy. You've touched on it a little bit, Michael. But I'm going to ask you directly again, because my memory's a bit scribbled early this morning. The strengths of Oscar Fraulo. What are his strengths? What can he bring? You talked about basically through balls and pinging passes and things like that. What are the strengths of this player?
No, exactly that. I think the way that he can affect things from deep is why he's now playing deeper. And that's why I wonder what did Derby need and how could he fit within that? He won't come in and play on the wing or as attacking midfield like he has done in the past. So sort of a question for you, I guess, and your viewers who might be screaming at the screen or the podcast where they're listening is, where would he fit in? What do you need? Because would he fit into that? And can he play from deep within your system? Because those are things he'll bring to you. That general overall midfield play, the way that he can shield, use his strength, but also play some balls from deep.
We need everything, Michael. We need everything. So there's not one thing I think that we don't need. So that's good to hear. I think, I could definitely see him. We like to play. If you watch Derby these days, Michael, we don't play down the middle. We tend to play down the wings. Like there's something going on in the middle of the pitch, like the groundsmen like don't play there. So we don't do that. So we ping the balls out wide. So definitely you can see that kind of passing range, being helpful for that kind of thing. And we just signed a huge Norwegian striker. So again, the ability to put balls in, for him for knock-ons and to hold up is a strength. What are the weaknesses, or I'll put this a little bit more politely, the weaknesses or the areas improvement in Oscar Fraulo's game? Where does he need to work on his game to be the most complete version of himself?
Sure. I think this is probably why he's not been able to succeed much so far, because he's not had these, like, when he's playing as attacking midfielder, you'd think he'd score more goals, or if he's out wide, he's creating more. And while his assists aren't the be all and end all, being like a wing, that kind of thing, he's not known for that. And that's why I feel like he's been that victim of having to play deeper and deeper as he's had to go. I still think the potential is high about him, but this is why it's, how do I put this? He's that generic midfielder. And I think that's why he's lacking those real, I've given you some strengths, but also he's not a key component of that Utrecht team. And that's why he's therefore struggled to hold down his place. What are those weaknesses? Well, he's not been able to affect the game enough from attacking positions, and that's why he's not been able to play more in those games there. Like I said, when he first came onto the scene, like he was really keen to impress, but was missing the mark on a number of things. So his energy was important, and that was a strength. But then what was he doing with that was more of a weakness. So in terms of being able to affect the game and the attacking third was a concern. But that's why he's succeeding, I think, more from deep now. But that's why it's a bit of an unknown still, because he's not had too many games from there. It's quite a recent thing this season we've seen.
Yeah, it kind of seems to me that he is kind of a player that is playing in the game and then it finishes and you're like, wait, that guy kind of played. Um, because he's kind of there. And sometimes you get players that are just there and they just do the job and that's fine. But it also kind of seems like he's a little bit of a victim of Utrecht's success rather than kind of in his own way. So it's a little bit of a toss-up thing. Like I could see it being exciting and also not exciting. And before I let you go, Michael, and before we wrap this up, you are based in the United Kingdom, so you bring a unique perspective on both Dutch football, the Eredivisie, obviously Oscar Fraulo, but also talk to me about: do you think that this player is ready for the championship? Now we know the Eredivisie and the championship are different levels. Both have different strengths, both have different weaknesses, right? In the leagues collectively. Derby's currently in the bottom three. We picked up 4 wins in like 25 games, struggling in what appears to be now a relegation battle between now and the end of the season. You watch a lot of football. I'm assuming you've watched the championship over the years. You've watched a lot of Eredivisie. Can this player come into a championship team that's struggling and make an impact in a relegation battle? And I know that's a bit of a loaded question because Ronaldo and Messi could show up and they might struggle to get somebody out of the relegation battle. But with the physicality of the championship coming in January, new country, new league, new culture, is this someone that you think can hit the ground running? And do you think this is someone who can and when I say make a difference, I'm not talking about promotion push. Is this someone that you think can elevate the standard of play at Derby in the championship? And do you think he can hack it in the league? Because I mean, he is a Danish under 21 international, so he's got something about him. They don't just pick anybody because Denmark's got a pretty good team, to be fair. Mm-hmm. Is this someone who can adapt quickly to the championship?
Well, the Eredivisie has a mixture of levels within it. So you've got the top, which you can compare to the Premier League, or the standard you have. You've got the middle, maybe the European chasing sides who you'd say could fit in the championship. And then you've got the bottom sides that will belong way out of the championship, League One, I'd say. So that's the level you're comparing it to. The championship's got all of that, hasn't it? That middle bunch in between is quite congested, very competitive, very exciting league. Oscar Fraulo is very young, and I think mentality-wise, I don't want to come onto a podcast and just praise a player and say, oh, he's amazing, and then leave everyone with that view of he's going to change everything. I'm so excited now. I do tend to try and give that honest view. I do miss the mark on a few, obviously. I did, however, get the one with Anthony right to Man United. I didn't think he'd be one of their worst players ever, but I did think he'd be a success, to be fair. So Fraulo, I'm not sure. If I'm honest with you, when he first came to Utrecht, I thought, he's got energy. Like this, he's got a great stamina, got great lungs on him, which is why he's a midfielder. And I think he'll give you that energy for sure. He'll give you that enthusiasm and commitment. But in terms of that, being able to bring something on the ground, that physicality, has he got it? Maybe. I don't think because there are some players you could criticise of being very technical and it's all about their passing game, and then they come to a championship or Premier League and then it's like a shock. So Mats Vifa, for example, at Brighton, has taken a long time to settle in, coming from finals. So I think that energy probably suits a championship. But I've also got to look at the signings that championship clubs have been making recently from like the Eredivisie, particularly Utrecht. So Hidde Arves and Ola Romani have both come from Utrecht and gone to Oxford. And to Arves has barely played and actually struggled against Exeter City in the FA Cup match, who's a right back. And you've got Ola Romani, who's scored a couple of goals for Utrecht. And I think a championship club went, we'll have a bit of that. But he's never going to be a starter for them. So I think that Utrecht have cashed in very well, actually, on some of these players. Now, he has no value to Utrecht. He's on loan. But I wonder if they're like, well, if he's going to go, he can go. And Championship Club, again, try to take a gamble on a player that they think looks very exciting. He's playing for a top club in the Netherlands. Wow, this is very exciting. And then they end up being disappointed. I don't think it's going to be quite like those two signings that went to Oxford. But I worry a little bit for him that this might have come a little bit too soon. Can he affect the club enough to get them out of danger in a very tough league? I don't know. So I'm leaning towards, I'm on 50-50 on this. So let me very on the fence. I don't think it'll be an overwhelming success, but I also don't see him be a complete failure just because he has the championship level of energy and he could play 2 games a week, I'm sure, because of that. I wish him all the best though if this does happen. And I don't think it'll be the only time Derby come back because Cameron was an interesting one as well to come to the championship. I thought physically he would be too. I hate saying this, like too small to go there and make that difference. He was more of that box to box player as well, actually, retreating from attacking midfield position because again he didn't score enough goals, but did quite well technically. I guess he was more that kind of level of player when playing with Excelsior. So Fraulo's kind of more of that energy rather than technical ability.
And that's good to hear, actually, Michael. That actually like warms me, so to speak, because the one I've said this many times on the podcast, the one thing that never drops in form is your ability to work hard and your work rate. And if you have, whatever level you're at, you can always work hard at what you're doing, and that will, whether it's in your regular job or whether it's playing football or whatever it is. If you work hard and you try your best and you have that energy, that gets you out of a lot of things. You might be like crap at headers, but you're like, hey, I don't need him to head. I just need him to run around for 90 minutes and do the work and let other people do what.
So maybe that could work out for him if that's what he's bringing to the team for sure.
Yeah, I mean, if you're looking at working hard, so when you say that, I'm kind of like that's kind of like an extra plus in the pocket there because you have someone who can come and spell people. So it's kind of an exciting signing, Michael. Derby's been looking overseas for some players with Kenzo Houtmine, the goalkeeper Zetterstrom, Lars Jorgen Salvesen. We just signed from Norway. So, our scouts are getting their passports out and they're looking, and it's kind of exciting, Michael, to get a player from overseas rather than, looking at like Walsall all the time or Exeter City. Like, no disrespect to those clubs, but like a little bit more buzz when you get linked with an interesting player who plays overseas that you don't know. It's like an air of mystery about them, which is always nice. And Michael, thank you so much for taking the time to talk Oscar Fraulo this morning. Really appreciate it. Exciting signing. Hopefully this comes off, and hopefully he can get Derby out of the mire here, and then we'll be talking in summer about what other players Derby need to target from the Eredivisie. Better, well within a very small budget. Michael Statham, he's a Dutch football expert for Football Orange. Michael, thanks so much. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, you're very welcome. If people want to check us out, Football Danish is a Dutch football website, YouTube channel, podcast, whatever you want to call it. We're on social media as well. It just talks about Dutch football in English. So we do the league, but the national team too.
Fair enough. And yeah, you said Orange way more sexier than I did. By the way, I'm sorry I butchered that, but like it is way too early in the morning for me to do like pronunciation. But you said that way more sexy than I did. So say the site one more time.
Football Aranya.
Fair enough. Football Aranya. There we go. Michael, thanks so much. Really appreciate it, and hopefully we can link up again soon.